Welcome back, everybody. Another segment within the TokenizeThis conference. Hope everyone's having a great day, enjoying these panels so far. My pleasure to be joined by Mike Reed, Head of Digital Assets Strategic Partnerships at Franklin Templeton. For those who don't know, Franklin is a massive asset manager, a pioneer, one ahead of its time in this space specifically, and now really starting to see some nice traction come in. Always a name I had my eye on, real honor to be here, joined with you, Mike. Real quick, would love to hear a little introduction about yourself, kind of what you're working on at Franklin Templeton, and then we'll hop in and move forward.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, Peter. And I know my colleague Mike is going to be on the next panel as well. So we're thrilled to be a part of the event. So I'm Mike Reed. I lead strategic partnerships for the digital asset effort. I've been in this space for a few years now, and prior to that, I did fixed income at Franklin for almost 2 decades. And that's me.
Fantastic. I love it. Well, listen, we'll hop right into it after that. I think just to kind of set the stage for all of our viewers, listeners, anybody involved, would love to kind of hear what, how did Franklin really get into digital assets as a whole? Not even just looking at tokenization, but rather the broad-based, was it Bitcoin? Was it ETH? What was the whole strategy, or kind of how'd you guys approach that, and how's that developed so far?
Yeah. I'm hearing an echo. Are you hearing that as well?
What's that?
I'm hearing an echo. Are you hearing that as well, or?
I'm not.
No problem. Must just be my computer then. So if I was to trace our involvement back to a single moment in this space, or the first time I heard about blockchain technology, I remember the guy who leads our digital asset effort, Roger Baston. His son was, he came to the office one day, he's like, and my son is playing video games online, and people are watching him play, and they're paying him to watch him solve different puzzles and different riddles in these games. And he's getting paid in Bitcoin. And we were all like, that's kind of interesting, different. And so we started to figure out like what Bitcoin was and everything like that. And then 2014, Ethereum, smart contracts came about, programmable money, like all those things. And we started to just become obsessed with it, and learning more and digging into the space and trying to find it all out. But that was more like just intellectual curiosity that we all had, and debate and discussion around it. We were in a trading floor environment, so people are just shouting things around and kind of thinking about things. We really started our development work in earnest because it stemmed from this idea of trying to find ways for the broader company to benefit from blockchain technology. So Roger's fond of saying that a lot of our efforts in this space have really just come from paying attention to words. Digital ledger technology. So when I hear the word ledger, and for anybody who's in finance, when you hear the word ledger, that word should really resonate with you, because our industry is rife with ledgers everywhere. And so when there was this potential for figuring out, increasing efficacy of ledgers, efficiencies, whether that be cost efficiency or trust efficiency, or just general efficiency of ledgers, was something that really attracted us to this space. So we started to develop kind of on the basis of that.
Awesome. So very interesting. So the entry story is one of a kind, of course, with Roger's son and kind of how that came to the radar. Extremely.
Sure. But I think a lot of us in this space, we have stories like that where, I have a son who's a sneakerhead, and so he was really interested in some of the sneaker NFTs, and I think we all have our own kind of personal entry points that really resonate with us individually outside of anything workplace related, and that kind of drives that intellectual curiosity that pushes it forward.
100%. And then it's nice to kind of see it come full circle as things do evolve in the workplace, let's call it.
Sure.
And even on that note, is there anything you can talk about just still on the crypto side? Maybe Franklin's work or involvement with Eaglebrook advisors, or, if you guys are acting as a node operator in certain ecosystems. I think that's something even I hear from some of our partners, that they're always curious to hear how you guys are doing it.
Yeah, we made a bit of a splash at Consensus. We had a nice booth there, and the pillars of our digital asset strategy were on the side of the booth. And they're available on our websites to read about and stuff like that. We have kind of these key pillars of our strategy. One is the tech build around our on-chain products. Another is an investment strategies team. And then there's the node operations group that you mentioned as well. And the interesting thing about these things is one idea always kind of leads you to another. So when we started obsessing with this idea of ledgers and trying to build something on chain and figuring out, how could we possibly apply this to our company, we started learning about how all chains are different. They're all different. They have different ecosystems, different strengths, different weaknesses. Some are good at speed, some are good at security, some are good at both. I think a lot of chains are getting kind of branded now, where it's like, this chain is really good for DeFi, this chain is good for TradFi, here's a gaming chain, here's a pop culture chain. So you start learning that there's differences between all of these things. And not only that, but you start learning, okay, well, on each of these chains, there's all these projects that are being built. And there's different tokenomics, in the different projects that are embedded. And when you start thinking about tokenomics and feedback loops and value capture and stuff like that, to us, Franklin Templeton is a large asset manager. We manage portfolios where we offer active advice on individual assets. So this idea where there's value discrepancy between different assets is something that really resonated with us. And we thought, okay, so we're working on this on-chain development idea. What if we built an investment strategies unit that could really take advantage of the discrepancy in price, in valuation between different assets? So out of the development of the on-chain products came this digital asset investment strategies business unit, where we started to build things around that. Now, I think that a challenge we face in traditional finance, we have faced in traditional finance, is that when you're looking at this ecosystem, a lot of the traditional products that are available in traditional finance don't really address it from a risk management or portfolio management perspective. So we built a lot of our own tools. There's massive risk systems and empires that are built around these risk systems in traditional finance. We actually built in-house our own portfolio management, risk management, and trading platform to be able to deal with portfolios of assets like these all around that. And we were able to do that because we had this great tech team that was building something out already. So then so we've got the tech build, we've got this investment strategies build out unit. Then we say, okay, well, there's typically in financial markets, a lot of the value capture happens in those early stages. So we built a capability around that also in the investment strategies, unit. And then the node op stuff kind of is what it is. We kind of feel like you have to be in the networks to understand the networks. And all these things are interesting enough. They're all related to each other. So I already talked about how, if you're building a portfolio of assets, you really need help on the tech side. But then you also have things like, if we're investing in an early stage operator who says, what about when I need validator nodes? What do I do then? And we say, well, we have that capability and can help, there if it makes sense for us from a business standpoint. What about when my token becomes listed on exchanges? What happens then? And we say, okay, well, we have a team that analyzes assets, and if it makes sense for us to include those in portfolios, we can. So we can, or if they say to us, we need help on the tech side, we have a group that can provide a consultative function. So it's really building this complete, digital asset ecosystem in-house that we feel like has been able to help us have a good understanding, or a better understanding at least, of what's going on. Recently someone asked me, I was at a conference last week in Canada, and someone asked me if you could go back and do all of this again, only do it with external vendors, would you do that? And I said, it's hard to say, but I'll tell you that the learnings we've experienced from doing this in-house and building in-house have been amazing, immeasurable, and we feel like really help us to understand the space a lot better.
Yeah, that's a very interesting endpoint there. Yeah, I mean, you guys have pretty much built up your own little conglomerate for digital assets with all those verticals in it. It's cool to see the relationship between, let's say, the node ops, and if you have smaller projects coming through, and that's how you can support them directly. I think it's also cool. Is all this going on through Franklin's US arm, or is it happening abroad? Is like an international effort?
Well, I mean, we're a distributed team, so I'm based in Chicago. We have colleagues in different states and different countries all around the world. So we're really we're a global company, and so having global business partners is something that we're very used to and accustomed to, and so yeah, it's happening all over the world. This build and this effort, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, so you guys have the front row seat on the digital asset side. It's amazing. And even, relating it back to, let's say, tokenization and this conference and some focuses, you guys actually have one of the first, if not the first, on-chain money market fund. And I remember seeing, the initial headlines, I think maybe in 2019 come out, and then kind of getting some boost in 2020. I know it went live April 2021. It seems like the product was kind of ahead of its time. I don't think people are really thinking about that aside from a couple others. And now, obviously, in a different rate environment, it seems to be the talk of the town, excuse me, on-chain money markets and treasuries and related products. What was kind of the motivation? How did that really come to the stage to you guys, and how did that move forward from there?
Well, I'll say this. We're not anarchists. We're not trying to blow up the banking system or anything remotely close to that. We're also not trying to blow up the stablecoin marketplace, because we understand what a valuable tool that is in this ecosystem. Part of it was luck, quite frankly. We wanted to develop something and kind of incubate it and do it. We're really fortunate that our CEO, Jenny Johnson, is really interested in what we're doing. We have regular meetings with her as a team, and she enables us and encourages us to try things and see what works and try and help to push our whole company forward. So this idea was really started out as a thought exercise. Can we do it? What will it look like? What will it feel like? And remember, when we launched originally, rates for all intents and purposes were zero, and nobody cared. So it wasn't this big, awesome asset gathering opportunity for us. It was really just a thought exercise that came out this way. And then, of course, the failure of the banks, a lot of Web3 natives who had their cash in those banks, people thinking about different ways they might want to diversify their treasuries. And we started to receive a lot of reverse inquiry for the product itself. And so now we're fortunate to have a lot of Web3 native businesses investing, treasuries with their treasury with us, which is great. And then also, I'd be remiss if I didn't say we also have some non-Web3 native groups as well who invest just because they think it's a cool idea, and the investment properties work for them.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think to start 2023, the fund was maybe around the $30 million mark. Don't quote me on that. I'm just going off some recent reports, but I know it surpassed like 308 million all in to date.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we run it on a public blockchain, right? So you can see the money anytime. So it's all public information.
Yeah. And just kind of, if you're able to kind of clarify, so the fund, the Franklin on-chain US government money fund, it's FOBXX is the ticker, but the token is BENJI. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. The fund is we built it we registered it and built it specifically for this project. So it's a 40 Act mutual fund, 2A7 government money fund, very boring traditional structure that's registered with the SEC. And then the way that you own that fund is in tokenized form. So you own purchase a BENJI token, and one BENJI token is equivalent to one share of that fund. And the transactions are recorded on a public blockchain, and the transaction records are that blockchain TA that we built is the source of truth for those transactions.
Nice. And originally it was on Stellar, and I know you guys have kind of rolled it out or have plans to roll it out to a few other chains. What is that motivation really, just to create as wide of an interoperable space and kind of cast a wide net as possible? I mean, the systems are so fragmented still. So,
well, I mean, I don't think we think one chain will win the day here. Yeah, it's really, we believe in a multi-chain world. The chains are almost like different digital nation states.
Yeah.
And like I said, like they all have different constituents and different ecosystem partners. And when we're thinking about those, you have to think about how if you want to proliferate your idea, you want to have access to as many potential customers as possible. And if each of those offers us a different customer base, in traditional finance, we partner with the financial advisor community to distribute our products. And we have partnerships with a wide variety of firms. And each of those firms have different clients, different end clients they deal with. And in the same way, the different chains have different constituents. And so it just gives us a broader distribution set. But then also, there's some suitability criteria that we run through when we're trying to decide which chains we want to develop on. And I'd really bucket those into two main segments. The first is kind of the technological suitability criteria. So Mike, who's on the next panel, if anybody's sitting in on both sessions, feel free to ask him a question about that. Mike really, has developed a pretty strong technology suitability criteria for the chains that we may or may not develop on. And then there's also this distribution suitability criteria. And some people may think that, okay, so you want a chain where there's tons of activity and tons of volume being done already. And, that's a pretty good indicator for us. But then there's also this future state idea as well. So it's, if you don't have a large community already, do we see a path to that community being built and a community, potential for us to proliferate our idea that way? That's something we focus on as well.
Yeah, very interesting. And it always, it seems to come down to the incentives. Well, not always. Sometimes the incentives for issuers to build with certain chains versus, choosing the existing larger base. And I think you even said it earlier, there's certain chains that are seen getting labeled a bit more like professional chains versus kind of novelty scenarios, DeFi chains, what have you. So it's interesting. I mean, you guys are casting a nice wide net, and it's also great to hear that a lot of Web3 firms are kind of, using their treasury capital for the BENJI product. What I'm really curious about is, you mentioned distribution before, and in the traditional space, you're flowing out to financial advisors, to RIAs, to wealth groups. What does that look like for this specific product? Is it solely, on-chain on-chain buyers, but is it solely Web3 firms? You mentioned a couple others, but do you have traditional channels that you're also kind of pushing this product out through, or is that still just all going to the existing legacy, U.S. government money fund?
So the way this product is distributed, there's a retail way to access this product for retail individual investors. Myself, I have if you were at Consensus, there was a QR code on our booth where it would send you to the app that you could download. So that's one way. And then another way is we have a institutional user interface as well, just because institutions have different criteria that they count on for investing. So we've kind of built it both ways. And like I said, there's Web3 natives who say, I like the idea of just knowing where my money is and having complete transparency into that. I like the idea of knowing who I'm facing, quite frankly. I think like that thing is something that a lot of people still want to know, is who is actually on the other side of this. So we have that going on, but then traditional investors have some of those same ideas, but then they also like the idea, I could potentially, have strong earnings. I could potentially strong yield from this because of the savings that are achieved by running different functionalities on chain. So I think that both user bases are interested. It seems to us. I mean, we have clients in both Web3 and non-Web3 native groups.
Casting that net. It's funny you mentioned savings potential, and I know it still may be a little bit early, but I'm curious if there's been, if it's been well received from your team, savings using the blockchain fund versus not, and even beyond that. And this may be too early, but if you see different savings levels across different chains, so if it's Stellar versus Polygon, Aptos, whatever, if you're seeing anything tangible or material.
Well, I mean, the transaction costs are different across a variety of chains, right? So there's that. And when we think about the savings or potential savings we might achieve from running a product on chain, a lot of the legacy infrastructure for running traditional products, involves big monolithic databases and buildings and people who can make mistakes and stuff like that. And so a lot of that infrastructure, the need for some of that kind of dissipates when you're able to run a product with certain functionalities on chain. So there's there's definitely the potential for significant cost savings. But I think like from a cost perspective, obviously there's different there's different gas fees on different chains, and that's something we were well aware of. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And considering you guys build a lot of the infrastructure in-house, is there anything you may not be able to talk about this, but anything that it's still kind of missing or that needs to be upgraded? Anything you're not necessarily satisfied with to really get that full flow going?
Again, Mike's going to be next, so I don't want to
save that question.
No. I think we're really fortunate to have a really high quality development team in-house, so that's been really great. But there's certain things that I think that we wish that we could have in terms of functionality. There's some future state stuff that we're working on that we're really excited about. I think there's some things that just quite frankly aren't going to go away over the near term for us. So, for example, this idea of knowing your customer, the KYC component, I don't see that going away for us anytime soon at all. And so being able to think about how we can know our customer in a space where assets are passed around pretty liberally is something that we think about a lot, quite frankly, because we're like I said, we're a large asset manager. We have a lot of assets and revenue at risk if we make mistakes from a regulatory standpoint. So we just want to be sure that we're doing everything within the confines of our regulations.
Definitely. I mean, and that's why it's kind of amazing how deep you guys are in the digital asset space with all that.
We have constant conversations with different business partners and groups around the world to try and figure out where there might be applicability for the technology and applicability for the products. Certain markets, there's greater suitability than others, and some of that is down to how can you structure the products? What do they look like when you launch in different markets? Things like that. So yeah, we're constantly trying to get feedback, talking to our global salespeople to figure out how everything looks in different marketplaces around the world.
Okay, understood. And even so, looking at, let's say, the BENJI Investments app, let's say on the retail level, looking at the institutional interface, I think you said, and looking at utility, do you see any future where, I see a lot of headlines around the repo markets, around securities lending, just collateral mobility as a whole? Is there a future where, BENJI is being used within these networks, whether it's with JPM or Goldman, Broadridge, or something even with other partners? I don't know. Is that something you guys see in like any utility along those lines?
Well, I mean, like the idea that you could use, so I want to make something crystal clear. BENJI is not a stable coin. It is not.
Right.
It's a digital asset security, so it's decidedly different. But the thought that you could own an asset and legally earn yield on chain is appealing to a lot of different market constituents. And so within this ecosystem, I mean, not just like traditional finance market constituents, but within people who are Web3 native. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's something we're having like ongoing thoughts and discussions about. Again, like thinking about how we can do that in a regulatory compliant way with a US registered product is something we spend a lot of time on.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of the stuff we're seeing lately, even from our asset management clients, is really how to even move beyond the product level. It's given the lift that's there. And maybe there may not even be a target product in mind right now, but looking at all the different operational cases to kind of save some money before you make some money, if you will. So it's kind of interesting to see, how Franklin's trailblazing and kind of pushing that road, kind of like the offensive line, and just kind of opening up new materials and kind of new functionality. And so you're gathering the assets via BENJI, you're gathering it through your other distribution channels, and you guys clearly have legacy incumbent partners. I'm sure there's a lot to be done with them. And if you're able to kind of offer this, to your point, as it's not a stable coin, it's a yield generating product. With a stable value, I guess that's really like a superior form of collateral I see. And I think that's something that a lot of the banks are making use of behind the scenes, just in their own swaps and whatnot. So I was curious if that's looking on the radar, if that's something in the works, or it could go even beyond that. You guys may have your own proprietary system looking to do that.
Well, I mean, first of all, thank you for the football analogy as a diehard 49ers fan. But second of all, I think something that we've all seen, and anybody who touches this space sees, is that the collaboration level in this space is it's redlining all the time. And some of our great collaborators and partners I've seen on panels already, and there are more to come. So, it's pretty amazing. So as people, and also I think there's this idea that, we're still so early that being able to rise the tide for everybody is something that we're cognizant of. And, if we can provide some of that offensive line, like you said, blocking and tackling, we're happy to do it. And I think that this is a space that we really believe in as a firm. I think there are other traditional players who are starting to, see it and get involved. I think in some cases, competitors could become collaborators in the future as we all kind of work together to help, like I said, rise the tide for all ships.
Definitely. I mean, have a cohort of, money markets and treasuries and get some more attention on that. It'll flow to the big names. You guys are one of the biggest. I agree. I think that's kind of the trends we're seeing. Even the other panels seem to agree with whatever topic is at hand. But listen, Mike, that's all I have right now. I don't see any questions flowing in, but if there's any parting words, or if there's any way, other, let's say, banking entities or institutions should look to partner with you guys or work with Franklin in some capacity, I'm sure they could reach out to you at least and have conversations going for qualified discussions.
Yeah, definitely. We're open to talking to it. We I think never say no to a conversation. We're always happy to have a conversation, but I think the biggest thing, especially for if there's traditional players on here who aren't involved in the space yet, the thing I always tell people when they ask me about the space I work in, I say one of the things you can do if you want to learn more is just to engage, do it. Like the way that I started learning is I dropped money into a trading platform and started trading assets. Then I opened up another wallet and started moving things around to see how it all worked. I bought an NFT and thought I lost it in a transfer, and then I didn't. And, you start to see not just how cool and interesting it is, but you also start to see some of the places where there might be roadblocks and where there might be some potential to be able to make everything kind of a little bit smoother for the end user. So, like you said, anybody who wants to reach out, please. LinkedIn is easy. I don't know if our contact information is shared on this in this platform or during the conference, but happy to always entertain a reach out for sure.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Mike Reed from Franklin Templeton. Amazing conversation. Loved hearing about the history of the firm, the evolution on the crypto side, on the, blockchain transfer fund side, and everything to come. Looking forward to more conversions down the road. And thanks all for tuning in. See you on the next
thanks for having us. Really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely.